We're already halfway through 2024 and I can't believe how quick this year is going and how fast my life is just flashing before my eyes. But at least there's some more omnibuses to look forward to. Woof! Hey guys, it's me Marcus aka the Mad Dog and we're back with another video. Kicking this list off in 15th place, I'm going with John Constantine Hellblazer by Jamie Delano Volume 1. There are a lot of words in that title. Yeah, I'm showing a bit of my British bias with this, but Hellblazer has always been one of those titles that I've really wanted to read from the beginning. This probably would have been higher up on the list if it was just a Hellblazer Volume 1 rather than it still going down the creator specific route. Like I passed up on the Garth Ennis Omnibus a few years ago because I wanted them to do it in chronological order. But still, something is better than nothing, and I can't lie, I am very excited for this one to release. John Constantine's always been one of those characters that I've wanted to go back and read from the beginning, whereas other characters that I love that maybe debuted during the Silver or Golden Age just don't really feel as accessible. This is a great avenue for that, and I really hope that DC continues printing these older volumes of Vertigo titles, or maybe just some of the more underrated ones that have been forgotten along the way. By the way, if this is what's starting the list, then you know we've got a good catalogue for the rest of 2024. Number 14, I'm going with the Batman and Robin Adventures. Now I haven't finished all of that first volume of the Batman Adventures, but the stories that I did read I had a great time with. I think this is a very unique and enjoyable universe that gives me great stories whilst also reigniting that nostalgia. And the Adventures of Batman and Robin was a cartoon series that I started with when I was growing up, so this is even more applicable to me. So if I enjoy this half as much as I did the original volume, then I know I'm going to be in for a great time. And regardless, I just love the art style and how loyal it is to the animated series. And again, it's just another great sign of the direction that DC's willing to take the Omnibuses. Number 13, and already going with a bit of a curveball, but I'm going with the Death of Wolverine Omnibus. Now, this has made it onto the list because it's really piqued my curiosity because I did not read this title when it was coming out, and I just never really cared to pick this up, but ever since that, I've heard a few people talking about it, and it does seem to be a bit of a sleeper hit, and Wolverine's just one of those characters that I'm always excited to get new omnibuses of. Yeah, this didn't make it into my where to start for Logan that I did a few weeks ago, but then again, how can the death of a character be a good jumping on point? Charles Soule did the main story, who's a writer that I've really started to love in the last few years, but either way, now that a few years have passed since the story came out, I'm really excited to jump into it just to see exactly what it was about, because I find it intriguing that there was a comic series about the death of a major character and just no one seems to remember it. Hopefully there's not an obvious reason why. Number 12, and I know I'm going to be crucified for not having this as my number 1 pick, but it's Superman the Triangle Era Volume 1. And if you are the type who's going to complain non-stop that this wasn't my number 1 pick, then I'm just going to have to give you a bit of a harsh talking to. I have no nostalgia for this storyline, I wasn't even born when it started. And honestly, my intrigue for this series probably would have been greater if it didn't look like it was mostly people who've never read it that were trying to make me buy it. The only thing people can tell me about the Triangle Era is it went on for hundreds of issues. Not a great selling point, but despite that, there's something that intrigues me about this era, despite many people dampening me hype for it. Superman is a character that often seems to get forgotten about, especially when it comes to omnibuses, and if this is one of his greatest storylines, even if it did go on for a significant amount of time, I am fully ready to invest in that, but the reason this is higher up on the list is because I probably want to check out a few issues of this first. Also as well, this is probably a good time to bring in the rules because I forgot to say them at the beginning. First and foremost, this is my own list. I'm hyped for all of the books that are on this list, but every time I do one of these videos, there's always some comic book Karens that have to ruin it for you. I'm not making you spend your money on these books if you don't want to. Secondly, I'm only doing books that are scheduled to come out between now and the start of 2025, but delays happen, cancellations happen, and I can't go back in time and remake this video. Okay, hopefully that's enough restrictions that I've put on this video that's supposed to be a bit of fun, because coming in at 11th place, I've got Daredevil by Chip Zdarsky Volume 1, and I'm going to cheat and bring in Volume 2. These are both scheduled to come out before the end of this year and I could not be more excited. The only reason this isn't higher on the list is because I already reviewed this series earlier on in the year and I had such a good time with it, especially Volume 1 is some of the best Daredevil storytelling that we've had in a good number of years, which is saying something because some of the best runs that have ever come out of Marvel have been about Matt Murdock. Yet Zdarsky managed to make The Man Without Fear his own and did great things with Elektra as well. This is one of those series that I know I'm going to want to revisit in a few years and I want it in the best format possible. Does it drop off a little bit towards the end? Yeah, but I don't think that diminishes just how great this book was out of the gate. But either way, this is a phenomenal run and I'm glad we're getting both volumes quite quickly, and if you wanted to pick up these volumes or even get the DM variants or any other book that's going to make it into this list, you can get them for a little bit less with the discount codes that we've got from the channel sponsor organic price books. They've got great packaging, fast shipping and amazing customer services, and if you use code WOOFWOOF you'll get $2 off your order. And if you're ordering 3 or more books and you want them to be delivered together, make sure you use code WOOFWOOF ship it together for 5% off your entire order. Don't worry, you can just copy and paste them from the description down below and you can use these codes as many times as you like. Number 10, and I really thought this would have made it into the single digits, but I guess that just proves how stacked the rest of the year is, which is The Flash by the man himself, Mark fucking Waid, Volume 2. We got that Volume 1 and then there seemed to be complete silence about any follow-ups. And yeah, I can't lie, a Volume 1 is normally always going to be a lot more appealing than any kind of sequel volume. Now it's just about completing this run, and I know that this doesn't finish off everything that Mark Waid did for The Flash, but either way it's a great step in the right direction, and these stories are some of the first that I ever read for The Flash, and it's just going to be great when this is completed in Omnibus and I can go through this without needing any breaks. I also think the art from this era is quite underrated, so getting that in an oversized format is something that I'm really looking forward to. And honestly, I've got nothing bad to say about this book, which is saying something for me. Who knows, maybe DC will mess up the spine or something. Number 9, and this has been one of my most wanted Marvel Omnibuses pretty much since I started this channel, because it's Captain America by Mark Gruenwald Volume 1. And this kind of proves what I just said about debut volumes always being more exciting than sequels. But yes, this book is finally happening, and I have absolutely no idea how many volumes we're going to need for the nearly 10-year run that Mark Gruenwald did. But either way, in a similar way to me committing with Peter David on the Hulk, I am all in for this book. This is one of those runs that I've read bits and pieces of over the years, and I've never had the chance to read the full thing. Yeah, I know I've had Marvel Unlimited for a few years, and I could have read it there, but we're just going to conveniently ignore that. I don't know if this includes the stories that I remember reading growing up, like with the US Agent and Catwolf, which I know is a bit of a sore subject, but still, I think it's quirky enough to still work. But this has always been that run on Captain America that other later titles have always been compared against. And I've even heard some people say that they consider this better than Brubaker, which are some very big shoes to fill. So yeah, I know I'm getting myself into a very expensive rabbit hole, but either way, I am so excited that this book is finally being published. Number 8, I'm going with Spider-Man Brand New Day Volume 1. Now normally when I do these videos, I have a rule that I can't have a book that's featured in a previous list, but I feel like this book's been pushed back so many times it's kind of immune to that rule. Yet still, I can't deny that I'm so excited for it. This was the era of Spider-Man that I was reading in single issues, but I haven't really gone back to it since I was a teenager. And please, don't ask how long ago that was. Yet here we get the start of the Dan Slott era, and I am so excited to see how far they take this. I do hope they go all the way. I do eventually want to get a Red Goblin Omnibus and a Spider-Man Worldwide Omnibus. We got Superior last year, which was definitely a big win, and I am glad to see that Marvel's taking more of a risk with this. I say taking a risk, it's a Spider-Man Omnibus, so it's definitely gonna sell. But there was so much energy that was coming at the start of this run, especially because there was so many issues coming out each month, and I'm excited to see if it keeps that when you're reading it in one sitting. And it's nice because I recently learned from doing my Spider-Man by Nick Spencer review that if there is a problem with a Spider-Man book, you can just blame editorial interference and nobody's allowed to ask any questions. Number 7, and before starting this video, I could have sworn blind that this would have made it into the top 3, but it's Aquaman by Peter David. This is one of those books that I've wanted for years. Peter David is a creator that I love, Aquaman is such an underrated character, and this is his best run. And I'm saying that, and I've only read part of it. It's nice that there's so many of Peter David's series that are being printed in omnibuses, and I hope that trend continues. Like DC, can we please get a Supergirl volume next? I also just think that this is the most badass that Aquaman's been in the comics. Like, sure, yeah, Jeff Johns did do a good job at reinventing his image, and as a result of that, if I did have to fight him, I'd probably try and figure out a strategy now. Whereas when Peter David was on the character, I wouldn't even dare entertaining that idea. And I know the guy isn't even real, but this has always seemed to be one of the most underrated runs that has gone on at DC, and I'm glad that it's finally getting the omnibus treatment, and I am so excited to bring this into the dog pound. Number 6, I'm going with Moon Knight by Jed MacKay. I read the first couple of issues of this when I was doing my where to start for Moon Knight, and I really enjoyed it, but I just forgot to pick up the series after that. But in case its placing on this list wasn't clear, that is in no way an indication for my hype level for this title. There is all that hype there, it hasn't been spoilt for me yet, so I am really excited for this. And admittedly, I was doubtful if this was going to happen because I also really wanted an omnibus that included the Lemire series and the other titles that were going on during the mid-2010s, because I can't lie, when I'm seeing all these deep discount sales, it always seemed to be the Moon Knight books that were in there most. And also, Rommel always seems to be there, which should answer the question, why isn't Ron making it into this list? But yes, I'm so glad that Jed MacKay's run on Moon Knight has already been collected and it's so easily accessible, and as soon as I heard that this was being announced, I knew that it was going to be a day one buy for me. And if you're the same and you want to pre-order it so that you definitely don't miss out, or you want to get any of the other books off this list and you live in the EU and you want free shipping and free gifts with every order, then the only place that you need to go is Comics Bugle. They've been a massive support to this channel and they can be to you as well, because if you use code WOOFWOOF, you can get 3% off all items that aren't already in a sale. So if you're in the EU, get your pre-orders in. Number 5, a book that I never would have thought I'd seen solicited, but it's DC vs Marvel. Oh, but actually all those series are kind of terrible. I don't even know why they're printing that book, because all the crossovers were just gimmicks. Shh. I know that this may not be a great storyline, but I am still gonna get both of these books. But I just want this book from a history standpoint, and because it's very rare that we're gonna get this printed again. I wasn't reading comics during this time, there's a very real chance that I might have still been in the womb, but getting to revisit it now is gonna be such an experience. And it's one that I'm fully in for. I hope this sells so well that DC and Marvel consider re-releasing the absolute version of JLA Avengers, because that book is in desperate need of a reprint. But regardless of the quality of this title, it's such a great sign that this book is even getting printed, and I'm definitely going to be there to support it, and I really want the Jim Lee DM variants. Number 4, I'm going with a Green Lantern core by Peter J. Tomasi and Patrick Gleason Volume 2. Now yeah, I know there was some controversy when the first volume was announced because of the missing issues that were contained within it, and I am wondering now if I'm going to have to go back and do another video because of the missing the issue that I did earlier. If I'm being honest, when Peter J. Tomasi was writing this book, that was when the series was at its best. And in this volume you've got the crossovers with Blackest Night, you've also got the stuff from the New 52, which, if you didn't already know, is my jam, and this is one of those series that was fundamental to me growing up, so even if they do reprint this later down the line as a complete series with no missing issues, I'm probably going to double dip on it anyway, which is why it should be a surprise to nobody that the second volume is making it into this video. It's so humid in this room right now. Number 3, and it seems to be a theme in this video that I'm saying that I can't believe this book is getting printed, and this is the biggest example of that, even over something like Captain America by Mark Gruenwald, or even more so than DC vs Marvel, because it's Hitman Volume 1. And no, I'm not just getting it confused with the PS5 game that took the last 6 months of my life because I just got so addicted to playing it. I know it's the one that was done by Garth Ennis and John McCree because he was one of the first artists that ever did a sketch in my sketchbook. And when I was a teenager, he was talking to me about the series, and there were some volumes that were out, but you could never really get the full thing. So I read this in dribs and drabs, but now I finally, hopefully, get the full thing. I'm praying that DC is quick to announce a volume 2, but either way, I am all in for this first volume. This is one of those series that when you read it, you feel like it shouldn't exist within the regular DC universe. Like the title suggests, he's a hitman, he is dark, he is gritty, and at the same time, he does still cross paths with Batman and the Justice League. This is such a phenomenal run with a character that often gets overlooked, and I just love Garth Ennis' writing. When I first got DC Universe Infinite, this was a series that I started with. But like I've been saying throughout this video, hopefully this is a sign of the risks that DC is willing to take with its omnibuses. And we can hopefully get something like Birds of Prey by Gail Simone, or Martian Manhunter by John Ostrander. Hey look, after this, a guy can dream. In second place and getting the silver medal, it's Batman Bruce Wayne Murderer Fugitive. Now, when I was getting bullied in high school, so I volunteered to be a librarian so that I could hide in the library and not get beat up. They had about 4 or 5 comics. There was Man of Steel by John Byrne, there was some kind of Green Lantern crossover with aliens, and there was also Bruce Wayne Murderer. I must have read that thing cover to cover at least 50 times within a year, but the Fugitive side of the story is one that I never got a chance to finish. This was one of my dream omnibuses for the longest amount of time, and there is absolutely no way that I'm going to miss out on it. I am fully ready to dive back into this storyline, get that burst of nostalgia, and at the same time, figure out what happened after that, and hopefully it's just the first of many other Batman omnibuses from this era, so we can get more stuff like the Batman run that was done by Ed Brubaker, or some of the Chuck Dixon stuff. But if I could only get one from that time, it would definitely be Murder Fugitive, so I'm just glad that it's here. And yeah, I am fully aware that if there was any one book that is likely to get delayed off this list, it's gonna be this one. By the time of this video, it still says 2024, so it's making it onto this list. Now, before my number 1 pick, I'm gonna do some honourable mentions, the first being Hulk by Kate Otley. Yeah, we were demanding more omnibuses, and this is a result of that because it should really be an oversized hardcover. It is quite short, it doesn't have a conclusion, but still, it's Ryan Otley artwork in a larger format. And from the crossover issues that he had with Thor, it seems to dive headfirst into the science fiction angle. But it's just the price to page ratio and the fact that Kate left so suddenly that's making me not so excited for this one. In the same vein, I'm going with Thor by Cates and Klein. If you watched my recent review of this, then you will know that this is one of the biggest what ifs in recent Marvel. Not like the actual series What If, but what if Kate had never left this? this. But still, despite the fact that we're probably never going to get an answer to that question, there was a lot to really like about this. And I could see myself rereading a lot of those early stories, so if I can get it in the omnibus format for a decent price, then it's probably going to enter the dog pound. Another one, I'm going with Star Wars The New Republic Volume 2. But I feel like this book has been pushed back so many times now that I just don't really have as much hype for it. But regardless, when it does eventually come out, I know that all that hype will probably come back. And my last honourable mention is X-Men Extinction Agenda. It took me way too many tries to say that. And my last honourable mention is X-Men Extinction. And my last honourable mention is X-Men Extinction. Now this is that era of X-Men that I don't think is too accessible for me, but when it comes to the events, they seem to be great gateways, and I'm hoping that this is no exception. Oh damn, I should have said exception. But my number one pick for the omnibus that I'm most looking forward to in the rest of 2024 would come to a surprise to nobody who's watched this series before, because it's Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 4. Now Luke, I know you might be disappointed in me because I can't even remember the last time I did one of these videos and an Ultimate Spider-Man book wasn't the number one pick. But I'm a creature of habit, and this book still reminds me of my childhood, and I've got so excited every time I've got one of these volumes already. But with this volume, it pretty much does bridge that gap between Volume 3 and the Death of Volume, which is something that I never thought I would have seen in the omnibus format, so there's no way that I can curb my excitement for this. Like I said, I wish I could choose another book, but when I look through the entire schedule, this is the one that made me the most hyped. I remember when that first volume was announced in I think 2013, and then we just never got any follow-ups. I've still got my original trade paperbacks because I didn't think this day would ever come. So the fact that it is here, how could this not make it to the top of the list? But whether you loved it or hated it, that's the video. And in the comment section below, let me know what the books are that you're most looking forward to in the rest of 2024. I really need to get out of this room because it's way too warm, but until next time, just make sure that you stay safe and stay mad, all you dogs. Woof woof. See you in the next video.